Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone. Wow, great start. And hello, welcome to Looking Through the Glass. Today we have Barb, is it Nagel, right?
Angle.
As she is a boundary coach, and we just immediately started talking. So I was like, we better hit record. We better
Yeah.
hit record. So, Barb, let's go ahead and just take off where you were talking about. Um, let's just jump into it.
Yeah. So we were saying how, like, when we share our stories of healing, not only does it heal us to like talk about it and get it out, it's healing for other people too, because it's a lot easier for people to recognize themselves when someone else tells a story than if they just say, well, XYZ happened to me. Well, they say, well, here was the situation, here's what they did, here's what I did, here's what the outcome was. Here's what I tried. And that is just so much better to get the message of healing across to people, to give them examples of, first of all, like I'm in 12-step recovery, and that's what we do. We share we call it experience, strength, and hope. So, what life was like, what it's like, what happened, and what it's like now. And so, when I share what my life was like before, other people in the room can be like, oh, I think I'm in the right place. So we call that they identify with me. And then when they can hear what I used to be like, when I say what I'm like now, they believe that change is actually possible because they're like,
Yes.
wow, if that person can do it and that person, then I guess maybe I can too. And I think another thing that sharing our stories does is it shows us there's a couple of ways we talk about this in recovery. One is I'm not uniquely flawed, and the other is I am not terminally unique, because many people come into recovery thinking I had it worse than anybody, or nobody can possibly understand what my life is like. And then they get into this room and they're like, oh my god, I'm surrounded by people who understand what my life was like. And we
Hmm.
know that by stories.
Well, yeah, it's really that you talk about that because with my addiction, my own addiction, I was a functioning addict. If I didn't have it, I did not function. And yeah, and literally, I was having up to 90 seizures a week when I would try to quit because, yeah, it was I was spend months in bed. I lost so much time with when I was off of it. So it was like basically my brain could not handle because of the head injury, it could not handle the chemical change. So I had a certain amount. So it was literally as though I had to use it. It was a self-medicating that I had to do.
Yeah.
And I shamed myself for it so badly. But yeah, I hated on myself so badly for it. But, my family, when I came out, when I actually decided, or I'm not going to say decided because it was more of a directed type of situation for me, to go come out. And that's when I decided that I wanted to go ahead and, which Giselle's been wanting to do podcasts for a long time. So that's when I, was kind of directed, hey, you need to come out and talk and tell your story. And I immediately said, F you, there's no way. You know what I've had to do, the things I had to do to hide. You know the things, the lies that were made on me, and now people are gonna believe because I say, oh, well, guess what? I'm a drug addict, so he was right. That's not the situation. I don't want people to believe all that, but I did it, and it was the most freeing thing that I ever did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I
Telling
agree.
people
And
that
I think,
I had that was just so freeing. Like my kids' response for not, which Giselle had known, Giselle, I told her long before. She had known even before I even told her because she was a nosy kid. you know,
well, kids are not dumb, also.
They're
Yeah.
not dumb, but she would go through my things and, oh, hey, I did the same thing to my parents or to my mom. But, the sharing the fact of, hey, this is me. This is where I'm at. This is what
Yeah.
I'm facing was did the exact opposite of what I was always thought it would do. It strengthened me, not weakened me. It gave me the strength to reach out, and I didn't do any recovery center. I didn't do, I wasn't, I was too afraid. One, because I had seizures and their routes of going about it, either they don't accept you or they're not, it's not a very nice way to route. And so we had decided also, because of the situations that I happened throughout my life, I was like, you're not going to use this against me. I'm not going to go public with this but until I did look into the glass. And, it's really funny. If I would have went public about it so long ago, I would have been so much more open to healing that much before. It's so weird.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned shame because that's something everybody in every recovery program, whether you're addicted to a substance or it's a process addiction, or like my core wound is codependence. I think of it as kind of like I was addicted to people, and everybody is just riddled with shame. And what's
Mhm.
really wild, and you've said it without coming right out and saying it, but I think it was like when we bring the stuff out into the light of day and let sunlight shine, it can't like grow mold and fester the way that does when we keep things a secret and when we hide and when we isolate. But of course, we don't want to make ourselves unnecessarily vulnerable and just share with everybody. So it helps to start sharing in rooms with people who are going through the same thing first, and then feel okay about it. And then, if you want to share in public, a lot of people don't. I happen to share very vulnerably on my podcast, and I don't have shame about stuff that I used to. Like, I lied my entire life, and I thought
Mhm.
that I was an honest person when I got in recovery. Another thing, like, I secretly smoked cigarettes for 20 years, unless I was out in public with drinking with friends who drank and smoked cigarettes, then I would smoke. But everybody thought that I smoked like part-time. They're like, how do you do that? And it was like, I don't, I fucking smoke full-time. And the fact that I could publicly say it to people, I cannot tell you how ashamed I was of that. It was just, but to me, it
it's
was like part of the whole process was just, it reinforced I need to isolate. I can't do this in
Mhm.
front of other people.
Yes, the shame is the one thing I think is the most powerful thing in addiction
Yeah.
is the shame. It,
Yeah.
to me,
Absolutely.
any in my
Yeah.
experiences, that's
Hmm.
and then everything I did and everything I ran, my default ran out of a place of shame, and the decision making that I made was from injured and not healed, and so therefore it just created all of this, the snowball effects and everything. So yeah, this is I was gonna say something else and I can't remember what it was. I'm doing that a lot today.
Oh, you
I
are.
will probably come back to you.
It probably will, like 3 days from now, and I'll be like, I'm gonna have to message her.
So I don't know if it's just on my end, but your audio got a little wonky there, and I didn't quite hear that last sentence.
Oh, I
She
said
said it was
that.
gonna be. She's gonna remember 3 days from now, and then she's gonna realize
Okay.
that she's gonna have to message you.
Yeah. I was gonna say, go ahead and send me a message. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, what led
That-
you into becoming a boundary coach?
Well, how much time do you have?
Well, we can make multiple
Yeah.
multiple episodes.
Yeah.
You
So,
know.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, that's really my story as part of it. So, I'll give you a fair amount of background because it's really important to how I became a boundaries coach. So, I have a master's degree in sociology, and when I got out of grad school, I was like, I want to level the playing field. And so I ended up working for 19 years at Yale University as a program coordinator for urban education, prevention, and policy research, mostly running programs in schools, primarily college access programs for kids. And I decided to work in education because I felt like this is the place that, we have the greatest hope of leveling the playing field. So 17 years into my time at Yale, I hit what I call a codependent bottom. And that was a result of inviting a homeless friend that I met through church to stay at my home during a really bad snowstorm. And I now know that's not normal. So the backstory to that is I met him right around the same time as I volunteered to serve on a project serving homeless people for my church. And so this guy, Dan, came as a homeless person, as a parishioner. And I was like, oh, this is like God bringing me a homeless person to befriend so that when I'm serving homeless people, he can help me really understand like what it's like to be homeless. And he was actually really helpful with that. And about 2 or 3 months into our friendship, we had a really bad snowstorm here in New Haven, and I knew like nobody likes staying in a homeless shelter, but he really hated it. But you cannot not stay in a homeless shelter when there's like 2 feet of snow. So he stayed,
Yeah.
of course he said yes to stay at my house. And then I invited him another time and another time. And within a few weeks, he was practically living with me. And I soon felt trapped in my own home. So he was a self-admitted addict, alcoholic. I think now on reflection, he might have had some kind of personality disorder because this guy fucked with my head in a way that I had just never experienced. And so one day I'm in therapy talking about him, and in the middle of a sentence I go, oh my God, do you think I need to go to Al-Anon? And my therapist was like, yes. So like, do folks listening to this know what Al-Anon is, or should I give a brief description of that?
Please give a brief of that
Yeah.
because I
Okay.
completely am confused on
Yeah.
that.
Okay. All right. So I've mentioned 12-step recovery a couple times. So if you've ever heard of 12-step recovery, or even if you haven't, you've probably heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. So
Yes.
Alcoholics Anonymous was the first 12-step recovery program ever created in the US in the 1930s. It was the first time in the history of humans that droves and droves and droves of alcoholics got and stayed sober. And the second 12-step recovery program created, which by the way, there's over 200 now. The second one ever created was Al-Anon. And you may wonder, and Al-Anon is for the loved ones of alcoholics. And you may wonder, like, why do the loved ones of alcoholics need a program of recovery? And it's because alcoholism
I
is a
absolutely
family
understand.
disease, right? And
Yeah.
it's really like the emotional impact of alcoholism is the real problem. So we tend to think of the drinking behavior of the alcoholic as being the core problem. It's actually not. It's the top. It's like the top of the mountain of symptoms of the problem, and which is essentially dysfunction, typically trauma. And so I knew that Al-Anon existed. So I went home, and whatever I put into Google for Al-Anon, the word codependent came up, and I was like, what? Now, I had been in therapy. I was 52 at this time. I had been in therapy since I was about 15. And of course, I didn't go like 37 years straight, but I went most of that, very much of that, 30 something years of that time. Had never heard the word codependent. I read a gajillion self-help books. I did workshops, workbooks, spiritual things, seminars, retreats, like you name it. And I was like, how did I not know this word codependent existed? And a codependent
Right?
person is essentially someone who's focused on everyone and everything outside themselves, typically to the neglect of themselves. They put everybody else's opinion and needs before their own. And that was so me. And so I started going to Codependence Anonymous and very quickly felt a sense of relief. And I think because it was clear this is a thing, you have it, other people have it, you're not alone, there's a recovery program. And I also really quickly said to somebody, you know what? I think I need to be reparented. I don't know where I got that language from. I think I thought I made that up. And then
I have a
six
cousin
weeks,
that's actually a part of the community of reparenting and loving the inner child. I have a
right,
cousin in
yeah.
this group because there's alcoholism that runs in my family very strong.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
So I 6 weeks into going to Codependence Anonymous, I went to Cape Cod to go visit my friends, one of whom had been in AA for many years, and she had for 10 years, and she had just raved about how dramatically her life was turned around. So I was like, you're gonna love it. I'm going to Codependence Anonymous. And she was like, oh, that's great. Let's see if we can find a meeting and I'll go with you. Well, she couldn't find a Coda meeting, but she found an ACA meeting, which I had heard of as ACOA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. I didn't
Hmm.
think I qualified, but I said, I'll go for you. I now know it's Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And in
Hmm.
the opening readings, they said, well, we reparent ourselves. And I was like, what? And then they read the 14 Traits of an Adult Child, which is affectionately called the laundry list. And Heidi tells me I sobbed the whole meeting. I don't remember that, but I bought the literature, came home to New Haven, Connecticut, started going to ACA, and found out like this is the core issue for me. So the way that I describe ACA now is it's a trauma recovery program where you reparent yourself and you use the 12 steps to recover. And it really changed everything for me. About a year into that journey, I decided to let go of CODA because it was maybe like a 75% fit, whereas ACA was 100% fit. And that turned out to be divine timing because one of the women I was doing the 12 steps with had started sharing openly about her relationship with food. And I was like, oh my God. And it wasn't, oh my God, what she was sharing. It was that she was sharing it. And
Mhm.
she was trying to slowly get me into Overeaters Anonymous. I didn't know that. And I went to the first meeting. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a compulsive overeater. So I'm now down over 100 pounds from my top weight. And I've been at my goal weight for 8 years. And I have done the 12 steps 3 or 4 times in ACA, twice in OA. And for me, the 12 steps are where it's at. So, a couple years into my time in recovery, I got laid off from Yale. I had been funded by grants for years. And through a series of serendipitous events, I found my way into the world of entrepreneurship, startups, and innovation in New Haven and at Yale, and started my own business. And I just was like, I'm going to be a coach. I didn't even know what that meant. And it took me a while to niche into being a boundaries coach, but it just made sense for me because, boundaries, because codependence is my core wound and boundaries are basically the antidote to that, it just made sense for me to become a boundaries coach. And I started my podcast pretty early, and I honestly never thought it would have anything to do with my business. And now it's like the number one way I get clients. But I started it because I was like, okay, there's all this wisdom in recovery. One of the ways that I describe it is all that like ridiculous decades of work I did before recovery sort of scratched the surface of the iceberg of my life, and recovery melted the iceberg of my life. That I wanted all of this wisdom that recovery is chock full of to get out into the world. So my podcast is called Fragmented to Whole: Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. And I think I just recorded my 344th episode. This month is 8 years I've been doing it. And you know what's funny? In the beginning, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have enough content.
Right? Right? Isn't that the funny? That's what we kind of did too. And the content, it's there. Like it
Yeah,
is
it's life. Yeah.
even just our own personal lives. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, we started looking through the glass. We weren't podcast yet, but we were on YouTube. And I was like, we didn't know what we were doing. We were like,
I stumbled
I'm
my way
I'm
here.
following divine intervention type thing and guidance here. Giselle's known that we were supposed to do something like this since she was 13,
Wow.
and she's like, about damn time, let's show who you are, mom. And
Yeah.
and so we started it before I actually got clean. I was actually still using when we started looking through the glass. And we both wanted to show that the healing can be done
Mm-hmm.
just if you want it bad enough.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to show a place of how we can heal. And then in the
Yeah.
midst of all that, Giselle came out because she came out with her addiction, which is a non-substance addiction, which only adds to the whole recovery thing, and because there's so much that it affects.
Yeah.
Like, their addiction is not just
Yeah.
substances or drugs or sugar or eating or this. There's, video games. There's a bad
Yeah, there's
addiction with
there's
video
yeah, there's
games.
gambling, there's sex, there's debt, there's porn,
There,
there's so
yes,
many
yeah,
things. Yeah.
so many different things. And then there's also catfishing.
Mm-hmm.
Catfishing is an addiction, and
No
people
shit.
do not recognize that.
Hmm.
They don't recognize it that for what it really truly is.
Mm-hmm.
Catfishing is people trying to get out of their life, and that is their escape room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that is something that Giselle,
Mm-hmm.
that's what she did, you know. Um,
Kind of.
that's what I'm facing in my own life right now too with, my husband. It was a catfishing situation, and I'm sorry, Joey, for throwing you on the bus, but it is what it is, You want to heal, here we are.
Yeah.
But as a person on the other side of that, there's a lot, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But anyways, wow. So you have a lot with your podcast and
Yeah.
everything. There's
Yeah.
always so much information.
Yeah.
There's so much.
Yeah. So, would you like me to tell you like exactly like how I went from like just sort of coaching to like really realizing I was a boundaries coach and creating my content and stuff? Would that be
Yeah,
interesting? Okay.
absolutely.
So,
You're obviously gonna have to come on another time. Like if this
that'd
is
be great.
apparent,
Yeah, I'd
it,
love
like,
that. Yeah, yeah, I love that. So, I learned how to build boundaries kind of vicariously through the process of 12-step recovery. It's not like someone sat me down and was like, okay, Barb, we're going to build boundaries now. It's just something that I didn't even know that was what I was doing.
hmm
And once I was like, oh, these are boundaries. This is amazing. Oh my God. I was like, this is incredible. And I think the reason, like, one, codependence is my core wound and it's the antidote. Two, boundaries permeate every area of your life. So when you clean up boundaries, it tends to clean up multiple areas of your life, especially relationships, because they're all about your relationship with yourself and other people. But I decided, okay, I'm going to start doing some reading about boundaries. And everything that I read was a bunch of words. And one of the many things I learned about myself in recovery is that I'm a visual person. So when I was reading these books, I would draw these visual representations of like, if this was a physical boundary, what would that look like to me? And those drawings turned into handouts, and those handouts turned into a workbook, which is the backbone of my boundaries coaching program. My boundaries coaching program, like I said, there's a workbook. I have PowerPoint presentations. I have podcast episodes. I have tons of worksheets and handouts, and I have tons of articles. I have like over 150 articles that I've written. Not all of them are about boundaries. They're all about some kind of growth and healing in some way, shape, or form. But I have this multimedia curriculum, and so what I've done over time is I used to be like, I'll coach anybody, and now I will still coach anybody, but I focus on professional women who say yes when they really want to say no, and who neglect
Yeah.
themselves because they're so focused on others, because that was me. And I mentioned at the beginning, like, I'm a sociologist and my goal was to level a playing field. When I got in recovery, it was like that goal didn't go away, but it kind of went to the side, and my goal became healing other people, carrying the message of recovery to those who still suffer. And what I've realized in the last couple of years is those two missions have really kind of meshed together into one, because I want to level the playing field. And I mean that especially in regard to race, gender, and sexual orientation. I mean, I care about other people too, but those are my three groups that I'm really most focus on. And for women, like, women are not going to make inroads into the social structures of society when they keep saying yes to shit they don't want to do, and when they
Yes.
keep neglecting themselves. So you're not going to get promoted when you're doing everybody else's job. You're not going to get promoted when you're sick all the time because you push yourself beyond your limit and you don't take your vacation days. And then people think of you as the person who fixes things, as opposed to the person who like gets their own shit done. They fix everybody else's stuff. So I realized, oh, look at that. Everything kind of came full circle for me. And so I have my signature program is called Unshakable You. It's a 12-week private boundaries coaching program. I also do public workshops. I've started doing a boundary boot camp. I also have some smaller packages. I have mini courses and stuff like that. And it's just like I've created content over time based on what I need or needed, or based on what my clients need. And there's something, I don't know what it is. There's something about the way that I share my experience that helps people. I'm like, I'm just talking. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, and I think, clearly you've noticed that I swear. I think over the years I've had three 3 times someone has said to me, do you have to swear or do you have to say the F word? And I'm like, yes, I do. Like, don't listen if you don't want
Absolutely,
to.
you do.
But I've had like dozens and dozens of people like, oh my God, I love that you swear. Because one, I
Yeah.
swear, or two, it shows me that you're authentic. You're not like faking the
Yeah.
funk and you're not doing this. Now, if I'm doing a professional speaking engagement, like if it's in a recovery community, I will be swearing. But if I'm like, I was just at the Yale Working Women's Network the other day, I'm not swearing when I'm in there.
Yeah.
Like, I know how to act in public, but I'm on my podcast. And if you don't like my swearing on my podcast, don't listen to my podcast. It's your
Right?
channel. That's a boundary,
Exactly.
right?
It-
Yeah.
you're listening to me. I'm not listening to you.
Right, right. Exactly. Exactly.
This is my platform. Like, come
Yes.
on. You're
Yeah,
not going to
And
tell
it's
me
exactly.
not to
how
be
to go
stuck
about it.
up. It's not to be stuck up. It's to be, we literally have
Right.
created these
Yeah.
spaces
Right.
for ourselves and for others to
Right.
be as
Yeah.
safe as
Right.
possible. And
Yeah.
Giselle even pointed it out to me. Like, I wasn't doing my own podcast she's like, Mom, you create a safe space. So I'm sitting here as you're talking about codependency. I'm
Yeah.
sitting here going, oh boy, I might want to look into that. But I feel a little called out. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And but she told me, she goes, Mom, you've created a safe space. Here we are creating safe spaces for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But where's yours? Why aren't you using it for you? This is yours. Even my therapist was like, it is yours. You can do
Yeah.
whatever the fuck you want with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And, I'm not for everybody. Good thing. Like, I used to try, that's part of my problem of codependence. I wanted everybody's approval. Well, you can't. You can't have
Yeah.
everybody's approval. And like a lot of people in recovery and a lot of people with boundaries suffer from like they're not enough. Not me. I've always been, I'm too much. And I realized I'm actually just the right amount of everything. Like, I'm too much for some people. Well, guess what? They're not my people. They're not.
I've
And
always been told
so,
I was too much too.
right, and so I know now I'm just the right amount of everything. And if I'm too much for you, sorry, not
Oh no.
sorry, really, but I'm sorry for you that this is too much for you. But I get it because some people they just don't jive with my style. And I'm okay because I don't jive with everybody else's style either. And so that's why we have
Mm-hmm.
50 gajillion podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
I thought you were gonna say something.
I feel like it's a really not really double standard for me because I'm a people pleaser too. I'm very much,
Mm-hmm.
I'm constantly, but I am specific on who I'm trying to please and
Okay.
make proud and all of that. I'm very much a people pleaser when it comes to family and those around close to me. Now, if I'm at work well, I don't work anymore, but when I'm out in public, I don't care. People can look
Right.
and stare at me. I am who I am, and I don't give a shit. Like,
Yeah.
or the podcast. I'm gonna cuss. This is my platform. I don't. I want my guests want to cuss. They can cuss too. I'm gonna be open about it. But they don't want to listen. They don't want to listen. But when it comes to family, I'm very like,
Right.
let me do everything I can to make you happy. Let me jump through the hoops. Let
Yeah.
me, do everything I can to make sure that you're not looking down on me.
Right. Yeah. Well, the reason that we do that, Giselle, is that it's about safety. We want, like, we're protected when we're connected. Humans are pack animals. We're not lone wolves that, like, live on the top of a mountain by ourselves. And so one of the worst things you can do to a human is to ostracise them and to ridicule them and to make fun of them
And
and make
she
them feel
got
like they're not part of
so
the group.
much of that from her stepdad. Her
Yeah,
stepdad
and
was
so, it
horrible to
makes
her.
total sense. And of course, the people whose approval you want the most are the people that you love. But the big shift is that you get to be included in the people whose approval you want. Like, I had when I heard the term people pleaser when I got in recovery, I was like, I'm not a people pleaser. Yes, I am. I was in so much denial, right? And
Well, most
I
addicts are, and we don't even know it.
Right. And I didn't know that I was an approval seeker. So this is how I figured it out. So I'm in Codependence Anonymous for a little while and not that long. And I say to this woman, like, okay, I'm starting to get this idea that there's this like continuum of helpfulness where on one end we've got kindly, helpful, healthy, functional behavior. And on the other end, we've got like dysfunctional, rescuing, fixing, saving, enabling, codependent behavior, and I think I'm getting the difference between those two things. But in the middle, like that's where I'm confused. Like, where do you flip over from being just like regular helpful to being rescuing? And the woman was like, "Well,
Yes.
it depends, Barb. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you just want to be helpful, or because you want them to like you?" And I was like, "I'm totally doing it because I want to be helpful." And then that question percolated in my mind, and I started observing myself. And I'm like, oh my God. It's not that I want
It's
them
the
to like me, it's that I don't want them to think I'm a bad person. I want them to think well of me. I want them to think Barb is helpful, Barb is kind, Barb is nice. Like, I literally would say to people, I'm nice. That's why I help people. And that was a huge wake up call for me. And so for me, the gigantic shift that happened for me to go from 50 something years of no boundaries to having such healthy boundaries that I now coach people is that I've come to care more what I think of me than what other people do. And this does not mean that I don't care what other people think of me. Of course I do. What it means is I used to be willing to throw my integrity out the window and lie and manipulate. And people pleasing is manipulative because you're doing something to please people. You want them to be pleased. That's you trying to manipulate them into being, responding to you in a certain way. And when you're saying yes to things you don't want to do, when you act like things are okay with you when they're not, when people ask you how you are and you're dying inside and you're like, I'm fine, or when they ask you if you need help and you're dying for help but you don't feel like you can because it's going to kill you if you ask for help and you're like, no, I've got this. That's lying. And I'm just not willing to do that anymore. So I
Oh,
want your approval, but I don't, with claws, need your approval the way I did before. And so I've heard it said that it's fine to seek other people's approval, but only if you have your own approval first. So if you're going to do something that you feel really proud of and it gets you other people's approval, absolutely. But if you're doing something for the express purpose of getting someone's approval and you don't have your own approval, don't do it, because it's really hard to get your integrity back, once you've gotten rid of it. And so, Giselle, like, you get to be included in the people that you want to please. And another way very similar to that comes up with my clients is, I don't want to set boundaries with people because I don't want to hurt their feelings. Well, I don't really want you
oh
to
my
hurt their
God,
feelings
yes.
either. But first of all, you get to be
What
included
about
in the people
mine?
whose feelings you don't want to hurt. And
Mm-hmm.
secondly, if someone's feelings must be hurt in a situation, it shouldn't be you. And here's why. If you think about it, let's say you had 10 people that you wanted to set boundaries with, and you didn't set boundaries with any of them. You've essentially hurt your own feelings 10 times over.
Mine's
Well,
over, yeah.
let's flip that and say, let's say you have 10 people you want to set boundaries with, and you do set boundaries with all 10 of them. Maybe 3 of them might get their feelings hurt. If that happens, 3 individual people each got their feelings hurt once, as opposed to you getting your feelings hurt 10 times over. So it makes no sense that you're always the one taking the hit, taking the brunt, getting the negative consequences of whatever the situation is. So no, we don't want to hurt people's feelings, but there's also a difference between harming someone and hurting them. So I love the analogy. It might hurt you to use a needle to take a splinter out of your finger, but it's not going to harm you. In fact, it's actually going to heal you. Well, it might hurt someone's feelings to set a boundary with them, but it's not going to harm them. And in fact, it could heal the relationship. And I say that because when you start setting boundaries with people that have been around you for a long time, you're coming clean with them and telling them truth about what's okay and what's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that has the potential to heal the relationship by you being authentic with them. Now, truth be told, there are some people that we do lose when we set boundaries with, but most people we don't. And if we do lose them, it's typically because it was a toxic relationship. So if you have been overly accommodating for someone your entire life and you stop accommodating them, they're probably going to be upset. And guess what? That's upsetting. They get to be upset. And also, their upsettedness is theirs, it's not yours. And part of what we do when we're people pleasers and overgivers and rescuers and fixers and savers and enablers is we try to manage other people's feelings. We don't want people to be upset, and we especially don't want them to be upset with us. But
Hmm.
we get to manage our own feelings, and they get to manage their own feelings. So it makes sense that someone whose life you used to make a lot easier, you're no longer making easier, that they would get upset. Of course they would. And they get to be upset, and then they get to deal with being upset. So maybe they'll go find someone else who will overgive and accommodate them. Or maybe they will start taking care of themselves. We don't know, but it's not our job. Our job is to run our lives.
I feel quite called out.
That was not my intention, was not to call you out. It's actually to
No,
call
no,
you
no.
in.
You're,
Call you
you're,
in.
but
It's in all honesty, we both are kind of in this healing journey because when we decided to do this, I
Mm-hmm.
was still very toxic in
Mm-hmm.
a lot of ways, and there's been this huge change in me and in her and then us.
Mm-hmm.
It's been amazing. I have to say it's been
Yeah.
a true blessing.
Yeah. And
But
healing is a journey. It's not like, I mean, you're like going on a trail. You're not jumping off a cliff to healing. You're on a trail that probably never ends. But it doesn't mean like the
yeah,
healing gets more and more and more and more. But
sometimes
yeah.
it gets deeper.
Yeah, for
Sometimes
sure.
it gets a
Yeah,
little
for
steep.
sure. Yeah, agreed. And I think like one of the things that I've been talking about a lot lately is what I call internal boundaries. So I had this massive realization last year. I was like, "Oh my God, boundaries are about creating a sense of internal safety within yourself so that you can handle what goes on around you, including when other people are upset with you." And they're basically about what happens inside of your head. So, do
mhm,
you automatically jump in to rescue, fix, and save someone when they're having difficulty? Do you beat the shit out of yourself when you've made a mistake, or when you didn't jump in to take care of someone else? Like that is some deep stuff right there, and you have the ability. We have the ability to build a sense of internal safety so that we can withstand what's happening in the world around us, including people being upset with us. And so some of the one of the things that I say about myself is I don't set boundaries, I have them. Now, I used to set them, and I set them and I set them and I set them, and then they became internalized. I integrated my boundaries into my very being. Well, the same is true with internal boundaries. You set them in the beginning. So you tell yourself things like, I'm not going to beat myself up for this, or their emergency is not my emergency, or their discomfort does not mean I'm in danger. So we start by telling ourselves things, and eventually we internalize those things, and we don't get rocked by things that used to destroy us. Or maybe we get rocked, we don't get shattered. Like
mhm,
I mentioned, the name of my podcast is Fragmented to Whole: Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. And it's because one of the ways that I've conceptualized myself before recovery was I was a bunch of fragmented pieces floating around in space. There was space between those fragments, which meant other people's shit could leak into my territory. And the process of recovery, especially the part about building boundaries, helped me to integrate all of those fragmented pieces into one coherent whole. I also got rid of the fragments that weren't authentically and legitimately me. So now I can be rocked by things that happen to me, sort of like a statue, but I can't be shattered by them the way that I used to because I'm no longer fragmented. I am whole. And wholeness doesn't mean nothing happens to you. It means you can handle it. It means you stay grounded within yourself. When something shitty happens to me, I don't run and fix someone else. I don't start taking over other people's lives and doing all the rescuing, fixing, and saving things. I actually stay with me. And if I make a mistake, or if I, God forbid, do something humiliating in public, I don't rake myself over the coals. I stay with myself. I create my own internal safety. And what's wild is when you have your own internal safety, when you've stopped abandoning yourself, you stop seeking safety in the outside world through people, places, and things, because you have it internally. And then if you have a higher power, it's even more magnified. I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking.
No, it's been amazing because we have a lot of learning to do.
Yeah. Well,
Definitely.
you mentioned that you might have a couple of questions or scenarios that you wanted to ask. Is there something specific? I mean, I find it like, of course, I can give people tips and tricks and say all kinds of stuff, but I think people learn better when they hear, like, this is the scenario, and then I can say, well, here's what you could do.
With me, I've put it out there that, I recently, within the past couple of weeks, have found out that I have been getting cheated on. Uh,
Oh,
oh yeah, 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 yeah. It's been rough.
I
I'm
can
still in the very new stages of finding that out. And when you were talking about the being fragmented and in recovery, I was really noticing, a year ago that would have shattered me. I wouldn't have been able to, whereas now it rocked me. I'm rocked. Don't get me
of
wrong, I'm
course.
rocked, but I'm not shattered. Yeah, I had a whole bunch of seizures, but emotional trauma is one of my biggest triggers for my
Yeah, of
seizures.
course. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you know, I'm finding myself, and this is where, even we're in therapy and stuff like that. We started therapy and stuff like that. I haven't made any promises yet because I can't. This is too early for me to make any promises. My only promise is that I'm not gonna abandon myself in this process,
Good for
like
you.
I have in many, many others. And it really, just listening to you. That's why I've just been listening. Just listening to you has really showed me where I'm not, where I thought I might be, because I'm making different compromises, but I'm not. But I'm making them because I'm willing to.
Right.
Whereas before, I thought I never would be willing to. You know, and so that's why I'm listening, is like I'm listening, I'm like, okay, I'm not abandoning myself by listening to him, or by going to therapy, or by any of that stuff. I'm not abandoning myself by saying, no, we're going to do this, and this. I'm actually showing up for myself. Whereas before, it was like cheating was that's an end. That's a complete end for me. No, no, no ifs, ands, or buts. Um, I don't fully understand, and it's been, like I said, it's only been a couple of weeks. I don't fully understand, other than the fact that I love him, but why I would be willing to even talk at this point, and it's because I'm not shattered. Like, there was this realization through you talking. I'm not shattered by it. I'm
Yeah.
rocked.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I would have been completely different person would have showed up
Oh, yeah.
when,
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, good for you. That's great. And I think, of course you still love him. It doesn't take your love away, but you get to love yourself too. And if loving
yes,
yourself
absolutely.
eventually means you find a way to stay with him, fine. Or if loving yourself eventually means you're like, nope, can't work it out, fine. But just as long as you love yourself through the process and you don't make this mean horrible things about you, and you don't even need to make it mean horrible things about him, but
No,
you do need to
I
figure
don't.
out what happened and can we repair this in a way that
Mhm.
works for both of you. There are people who do.
Well, it is kind of there are, and I'm not saying that we can't. But there has been this Chet. I had it and I just lost it. Chet was good too.
I'm sure. It was
It was
brilliant.
really good.
Yeah.
Well, there's been this showing up, and I'm not the type of person to sit there and go, why me, why me, why me? But I am the type of person, due to the type of traumas and stuff that I'm still trying to heal from. I'm a it's my fault. It's my fault. It's my fault person. And that's where I've really had to show up for myself. And I'm really shocked at how
Yeah.
much I've been going, I'm not taking any of this shit.
Yeah.
This isn't my fault. I
Yeah.
was there. I showed up. I'm not taking this shit. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, it's been allowed me to really open up on things where before I wasn't showing up for myself because I was allowing and accepting of certain behaviors or of certain ways of being treated or certain different things like that, where now I'm like, no, you know. So I mean, I know that it's not happening to me, it's happening for me,
Good for
number
you.
one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, if you'd like, I can share some more tips about setting boundaries. Do you think that would be helpful for the people who are listening?
Absolutely. I think that would
Yeah.
be it would be absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
would be for me.
Yeah.
As I
So I
say, it
think,
would be for us too, because like
yeah.
we do this, we there's
Yeah.
this passed down thing here.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So I think, the first thing I want to say is one of the things people really like, it's good evidence that I have healthy boundaries and when I didn't used to, is that when I did my relationship inventory in 12-step recovery, I happen to date men. And so there was 28 men on there. So that was everybody from I dated them to a few times till I lived with them for years on end and everything in between. And what I saw was my codependence get worse and worse and worse over time. Every one of them was super dysfunctional. I also happened to track how many of them was their massive substance use, because even though I'm not an alcoholic or an addict, I drank abusively until I was in my early 40s. I smoked bales of weed, and I actually continued to smoke weed until, well, in my first couple years in recovery. Nothing like I did when I was growing. I mean, I used to be high, trying to get high or sleeping from like 10 to 24. And I smoked a lot after that, but I did stop sometimes after that. And so I lots of substance use. There was some infidelity on my part and the part of my partners. I had quite a number of friends with benefits, but I actually, until I did my inventory, I thought it was like a lot of my partners, but it was way less than I thought. And I'm now in the first and only healthy relationship I've ever been in. We've been together. October was 7 years. I was 55 and he was 60 when we met. So it doesn't matter how old you are. And I think, there's a lot of reasons that I'm able to be in this relationship, but my boundaries have everything to do with it. Because one, I know who I am, where I end and where I begin, where other people end, like where I end and other people begin. What's my responsibility, what's not. I know what I want, like, need, and prefer. I know what's okay and not okay with me. And before, I just ignored all of that stuff. I was a chameleon. I was bending over backward. I had all these like masks and facades up because I didn't want people to judge me, reject me, ridicule me,
Mhm.
abandon me, etc. And now I'm like, I'm with my partner. And I would say, like, if I were to say if there was one thing that has changed dramatically, like, there's been a lot, but the one thing I think is the most important is that when something bothers us, we bring it up as soon as possible. Right. So we don't let things fester. And I used to do that all the time. And I heard this quote on a podcast early in recovery, and this was it. Let go of your expectations of others and meet your own needs. And I was like, whoa, 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 wait, let go of your expectations of others and meet your own needs. And by the time I had heard that, I started to realize that a gigantic part of my problem was that I had all kinds of really unrealistic expectations about myself, other people, and the world. And I was starting to learn how to let go of expectations. But this idea of meet your own needs, I was like, what does this mean? And so I'm going to give you a couple of really mundane examples, but life is made up of the mundane.
Absolutely.
So my sweetheart, so he and I trade off. We stay over each other's houses. And so at his house, all of his blankets are either really scratchy wool blankets or they're really loud, noisy, like down blankets. And I like soft, quiet blankets. So before recovery, when I went to his house, every time I would use a blanket, I would have been pissed off that he didn't know that I want and need and deserve soft, quiet blankets. I would never have said anything. I would have been upset that he didn't have them. And then every time I went to use a blanket, I would be upset. And it's like I was building a brick in the wall of between the two of us, higher and thicker wall. And then multiply that times the 7,000 other things that I didn't say anything about. But instead, because I know how to let go of my expectations of others and let my own meet my own needs, I bought a blanket, a soft, quiet blanket, and I brought it to his home and I said, "This is my blanket. When I'm not here, use it to your heart's content. But when I'm here, this is my blanket." So I let go of my expectation that he should know or that he should have these blankets, and I met my own need. Now, most of the time when we let go of our expectations of others, it has to do with this like approval seeking that we've been talking about. Instead of trying to get someone else's approval, get your own approval. And meeting your own needs could mean, like I just said, I went and got the blanket and took care of what I needed to do. It could also be meet your own needs by setting a boundary with someone. So here's another example. Now, my sweetheart is a very visual person. He's one of the most complimentary men I've ever met. He notices things like nail polish and eyeshadow and earrings and stuff and says stuff. And he's a very complimentary person. So this one day, he was here visiting me, and I come downstairs and I have this brand new blouse that I love on. And he turns out he's not having the best day and he doesn't say anything. And I realized, oh, I expected a compliment on my blouse. So I could have met my own needs by saying, "What do you think of my blouse?" And I'm certain he would have said something nice. But I decided I'm truly going to meet my own need. And when I went upstairs, I looked in the mirror and I was like, "You look really nice today, Barb." So I met my need for that approval by myself. And then he got to have his shitty day that he was having, which it wasn't about me. And I knew it wasn't about me because he came in with a shitty attitude. And he gets to have a shitty attitude. If he did it all the time, that would be a problem. But he doesn't,
Mhm.
you know? And he brings things up with me and I bring things up with him. And so, sometimes we do it immediately, but sometimes it's not appropriate to do it immediately because you're in
Yeah.
public, or sometimes it's not appropriate because you need to process. So we had a thing. What was the thing we had? Isn't that funny? We had a let's call it a conflict last week. What was it? I can't even remember, which is crazy. And I was like, I don't know what to say. I'm gonna go in the other room for now. So I went in the other room and I did some stuff and he did some stuff and I came back and I was like, "Are we okay?" And he was like, "No, I'm still processing." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go in the other room." Like in the past, I would have like tried to make him like fix this right now. And it's like,
Hmm.
he has to figure out what's going on. Why he's like, "I don't even understand why I'm this upset right now. And until I understand why I'm this upset, I can't fix this with you because I don't know what the problem is. And oh, okay, I know what it is. So he did this thing that he sometimes does where he teaches people things they already know. Okay. And I have a brother who's been doing that my entire life. Oh, I just noticed my computer is somehow not plugged in, so it might run out. It looks like it's plugged in. Why is it not? Huh? Weird. Oh, the strip is turned off. There we go. Okay, where's that?
Welcome to look into the glass, people.
Yeah. Okay. So this is real life, people.
Exactly.
So I never heard anybody say you teach people things they already know, but he said that about my brother when he met him. He's like, "Oh, he teaches people things they already know." And then he later said to me, "Oh my God, I do that." So he was doing that. And I said, I don't know what I said to him. And then he said to me, I was just trying to be helpful. And I said, I didn't want your help. I didn't need your help. And I didn't ask for your help.
Mm-hmm.
And that pissed him off. But he didn't understand why. And so after a while, he was like, oh shit, I did the thing where I was teaching you something you already know. Oh, you know what it was? It was ice skating. Like the first time he did it, we were at a skating rink. I was skating on the ice and he was in the sidelines. And we've never been skating before. He was supposed to skate with me and it didn't work out. So he was telling me how to skate. And I was like, dude, I am actually skating right this very minute and you are not.
You are not.
And
Why are you telling
right. Then,
me?
so I just said that. I just said that. Didn't say anything else. So then it was a week later, and we were talking about going skating, and he did it again. And I was like, I guess I said something like, well, I hope you're not going to say that the whole time we're skating. And he got mad, and he told me that I was dictating to him what he can and cannot say. And that's okay. So now I forgot all this stuff. But in any case, we had this
It's
dilemma.
crazy how the miscommunication can happen that rapidly
Right. Right.
and in that manner because like literally like I that can happen at anybody with anybody
Right.
in
And
any
but
relationship at any time.
right, but what we both recognize is that we each have our own shit. It's like I used to blame everybody else. I constantly
Hmm.
like this is crazy, crazy, crazy. But one of the things I realized in recovery is that I lived with the assumption, this was subconscious, that in all my relationships that I was responsible for all of the good things in all my relationships and whoever I was dating was responsible for all the bad things. Like I can't even say it without laughing because it's fucking ridiculous, right? But that's how I lived.
You are human.
Right, right, right. But now I'm like, oh my God, I do have shit. I do make mistakes. I do have errors and I'm able to own them. He's the same way. And we also understand we need time to process, to figure out what is going on with me so that I can share what's going on with me. And then he owned it like, oh my God, I did the thing. And I was like, yes, you did. So it was both him teaching me things I already know. And then that thing where he says, I'm just trying to be helpful. And I will say, if you ever say the words, I'm just trying to be helpful, you have done something that is either like overgiving or sticking your nose in other people's business or trying to manage and control other people. So if you hear yourself saying, I was just trying to be helpful, take a look at your behavior. And if someone else is saying to you, I was just trying to be helpful, then notice that that is them overstepping. It's totally fine to help people, but only when you get their consent. So what does that mean? It means things like, wow, you seem like you're struggling. Are you looking for help? Or I've been through something similar. Would you like to hear how I handled it? Or are you looking for solutions or are you just venting? You ask people rather than just diving in and giving them unsolicited advice or sending them websites all the time or sending them podcasts that they should listen to all the time. If you are giving someone advice over and over and over again and they're not taking it, stop giving them advice. They don't want it. Use your own damn advice. Start giving yourself advice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
re-
So the,
it's
the
really funny.
communication. Yeah, go ahead.
It's really funny that you bring that up because not like before this before we started recording with you, there was a situation and I don't want to go into details because it's not my situation,
No,
but
no, it's quite, it's really, it was very much I'm just trying to help situation
Right.
and
with
I had to
somebody
tell
was
him,
doing it to
look,
me.
Yeah.
and I looked at him. I had to tell him. I told her to take me off her headset and put me on there so I could explain,
Mm.
hey, this is overstepping. This is, let her go through her emotions, let her deal with it. You don't need to over explain your side. We already know your
Yeah.
side. You're
Yeah.
just making it worse on
But
yourself
you
right now.
over explaining your side is now
Right.
fucking pissing me off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I don't think I talk about this. I'm just trying to help thing enough. And I think I'm going to at least do a social media post about it because it's so common. Like I used to say it
Mhm.
all the time. And I hear clients say it, I'm just trying to help, like just trying to help is a red flag. Something is up here. Because why do you need to explain that you're trying to help? Because clearly they're
Thank
not
you.
perceiving what you're doing as helpful. It's like, no,
Hmm.
actually, you're trying to control, is probably what you're trying to do. You're trying to
That's
control the
exactly what you're
situation,
trying to do.
right?
It
Yeah.
is a form of control.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Yeah.
problem.
Absolutely.
I gotta learn. I actually was very, very bad about that in the
Yeah.
beginning of my relationship.
Yeah.
And over the years, I have very much learned to go, no, you don't need to be in control. This is a partnership, you not a dictatorship.
Right.
I had to learn that as as a parent of adult children.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Which, Barb, you said you have socials for our listeners if they want to, if for when they want to follow you. What are your socials? And
Yeah.
I'll have them in the footnotes as
Okay,
well.
sure. So I really just hang out on LinkedIn now. I used to be on Instagram and Facebook, and I still have content there, but I don't post and I don't interact there anymore. But I'm on LinkedIn at Barb Nangle. So let me spell that. It's N as a neighbor, Angle. Since you're already listening to a podcast, you can hop on over to Fragmented to Whole, or you can go to fragmentedtowhole.com. And then my website has a ton of free and paid stuff for boundaries, mostly free stuff. So it's higherpowercc.com. That's short for higher power coaching and consulting.com. And I also have content for romantic boundaries, workplace boundaries, family boundaries, and personal boundaries. And then I do workshops. I don't know when this particular episode is going to come out, but on May 2nd, 2026, I'm going to be doing a boundary boot camp. I do that 3 or 4 times a year. And then I'm also on April 14th doing a workshop on internal safety and how boundaries allow us to build internal safety.
Wow.
Believe this will be out in April for sure.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
But yes, I really appreciate it with you coming on and explaining my who I am completely
Get to
out there
yourself. Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
definitely it sounded like me. I'm going, oh great. Something else I need to
You
work
ain't the
on.
only one. You ain't the only one. It's not, you're not the only one. But this is why we do this, and this is one of the reasons why we love being podcasters, is just because we get to have these experiences like this, and it's amazing. It is
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
yeah, good. Well,
And
I'd
we would
love to
love to
come
have you
back
back
sometime
on.
if you want me to. That would be great.
Yeah,
Yes.
we absolutely would love to have you back on because we could talk to you. I could talk to you for days.
Clearly,
Like,
yes, we could clearly talk forever. Yeah. All right, we'll
yeah,
do that. And then I have a resource I think would be good for you to. Do you say Sela?
yeah, Sela.
Sela. I thought so. I remember
Yeah.
that before. So, Sela, I have a resource that might be helpful to you specifically for your situation. I was on another podcast the other day, and well, I might as well just say it. I think it's called the Affair Recovery Room, and
Mm-hmm.
he was amazing. Um,
Yeah.
I think his name is Tim Tedder. I'll send you the link though, so you can check it out.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Yeah.
Because it's not a matter of me not wanting to try to make it work. Like,
Mm,
but at the same time, it's
yeah.
still very fresh in me, and I'm going through the ups and
Of
downs big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Every little thing, my mind, I'm an
Mm,
obsessor,
yeah.
and I am at my roots I've always been a people pleaser.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's been my
Right.
safety strategy throughout my life.
Well, and obsessing is another safety strategy. And here's the thing, internal boundaries help with that.
Oh, I
Because
bet.
rather than obsessing, it's basically you're abandoning yourself. You're abandoning the present moment because you
Yeah,
think, if I think about this enough, that I can fix it. And it's actually
it's not.
detonating your nervous system. So that's an
Yeah,
internal boundary too. So,
which is
yes.
which is really bad thing for me because detonating my nervous system creates seizures
Yeah.
and then it creates, when you were talking about codependency, I completely had a completely different explanation or of what codependency really is. I thought it was completely different,
Okay.
completely different.
You're not
So
the
I
only
was
one.
blown, yeah, I was blown away by what you said, and yeah, I definitely, I think I'm codependent for sure.
Okay. All
But
right.
yeah,
Well,
we'll
I
have
have to
you.
go, ladies, but this was fantastic, and I can't wait to talk to you again. And I wish you both healing for your people pleasing, codependent ways and love in your relationships.
Thank you so much, Barb. It was wonderful having you on.
Bye
Thank you for
now.
looking into the glass.
And I'm at 99% uploaded, so what do I have to do?